Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. The FA Cup took centre stage as Tuchel's Chelsea and Pep's City clashed at Wembley. City were looking to keep their quadruple hopes alive, whilst Tuchel was looking to take a step closer to his first trophy for Chelsea. And in the end, Tuchel came out on top with a strong 1-0 win thanks to a Ziyech goal. The XG showed that Chelsea created slightly more in this closely contested encounter. But what tactics did these two great managers use? Let's take a look. Let's first look at the formations, with Pep opting for a rarely used 4-2-3-1 whilst Tuchel stuck to his 3-4-3. If you want to get pre-match formations like this, match updates, stats, and so much more, check out our video sponsor, the OneFootball app. It is the best app to keep you up to date with your favorite teams and players absolutely free through the link in the description below. Let's start with what Victor's Chelsea looked to do on the ball. From the goal kick, Tuchel used a lopsided build-up, with Zuma and Thiago Silva dropping deep, drawing pressure from City's front three, whilst Azpilicueta moved wide to be the easy outlet. When the ball did go wide to Azpilicueta, Sterling could then move out to press, although the dropping Kante would then usually be free to receive. Crucially, with Sterling having been high, if Mendy pushed up onto James, the ball round the corner to Ziyech would be on. But if he hadn't, then James would be free to receive in space. But in open play is where the game was decided. Chelsea looked to push both of their wing-backs high and wide early, and City were looking to press high off the bat. But rather than keeping their wingers wide on the wing-backs, they often found themselves narrow instead and looking to press the centre-backs. De Bruyne would then be left to tie up the double pivot. So at times, this pressing front four found themselves isolated from the rest of the team. And at times, the Blues could break this initial press by finding one of these pivots. But here's where real problems began to emerge for City. When this pressing shape was isolated, it meant that there was essentially a 6 versus 5 advantage to City in defensive areas. However, to try and stop this pass into the pivot, Rodri would at times push higher, leaving things much more even higher up the pitch. So at times, Ziyech or Mount will be able to drop into the space centrally to receive between the lines and cause danger, especially as the threat of Werner's pace meant that a centre-back would be reluctant to follow. And with City's wingers pressing narrow and having a vulnerable pressing structure in general, Tuchel smelled blood and looked to exploit the flanks, particularly the left-hand side. When a wing-back looked to receive the ball deeper, City's full-back would charge out to press, leaving acres of space behind them, which Mount or Ziyech would move into immediately on their respective sides. And Pep may have anticipated this, which is why we saw two holding midfielders start, as they would immediately look to track the run into the space. But again, this would then leave space for Chelsea's men to receive centrally. So if the ball side pivot was occupied, the flaws in the press became evident, with a man getting in time and again, forcing the rest of the backline across, and Werner could use his pace against the slower centre-backs. The disallowed goal has shades of this. But more pertinently, so did the actual goal. Again, City's pressing four are high, with Foden having replaced De Bruyne, and Cancelo has looked to press high on Chilwell. Mount has drifted into the space created, and this time Fernandinho didn't follow him. So Mount can then receive in space, and City's centre-backs have shifted across, but they are no match for Werner's pace, who can get in behind to then feed Ziyech. But City also had interesting mechanisms in attack. When City built with just their centre-backs, Chelsea used Ziyech and Werner as a front two, with Mount looking to pick up the second pivot, and one of Kante or Jorginho could join the press, as City only had 110 initially. This made central play extremely difficult, as we can see in City's attacking strategy. And special mention should be made of Tuchel keeping 2 men up front even when they were under sustained pressure in the dying embers of the game. Many managers would have switched to a 5-4-1, but this would then have allowed an additional centre-back to progress into the midfield with the ball and draw Chelsea's men out of position. But by keeping 2 men high, City's centre-backs couldn't progress, and bringing on Ziyech and Pulisic late shows how important it was for Tuchel to stop any progression from the centre-backs. Initially, City adapted by looking to cause overloads down the right, as to begin with, Chilwell was on Cancelo and Rudiger on Ferran Torres. And the overload would often be created through De Bruyne moving to the right to try and receive in these zones, but he had limited impact from these deeper areas, with Mount or Jorginho often covering across well when needed. So City tried to occupy the centre more, often with Cancelo at times beginning deeper against the 2-man press to create a 3 versus 2 and allow Mendy high on the left-hand side. And rather than tuck into the half space as the second forward as a result, Sterling would drop deeper to be a second 10 alongside De Bruyne. You can see this in their average positioning. So where previously, Kante or Jorginho could press the second pivot easily, as the other could deal with the sole 10, now, when it happened, it meant that there would be 2 versus 1 down between the lines. And we did see Sterling receive the ball between the lines a few times and make some interesting runs with the ball. But in this match, he was far from his best, so he couldn't make it count. But we also saw the benefit of Chelsea's back 5, as even if City had 3 or 4 high, Chelsea would have the numerical advantage, and this allowed Azpilicueta time and again to follow Sterling deep to prevent him causing any danger. City did at times look for the chip ball into the space vacated by Azpilicueta, however, it was often to no avail. Overall, this was a great display for Chelsea, and yet another example of the impact a quality manager can have on a team. City still have plenty to fight for, but a couple of poor results and performances of late will be of concern. But what did you make of the match and each manager's tactics? Drop it down below and let me know. A quick shout out to my Patreons for helping to make this video possible. If you want to support, head on over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple and you'll get rewards like early access to videos and exclusive content. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.